Welcome to another wonderful episode of your movie critic show, Movie Dissect. Today, like I have promised, that we are going to analyze another Nigerian movie or an indigenous Nigerian movie. I think this is one of the first movies from the way back. This is a movie that actually started the whole movie concept. And I'm talking about no other than Living in Bondage. But we're talking about the Breaking Free, which is the revamped version that was done in 2019. Living in Bondage is I think a 1991 movie or a 1990 movie, between 1991 and 1992 movie, because there was a part one and then there was a part two. Andy Okeke and Merit Okeke and other most of the celebrities you now have or the veteran actors we now have all started in that. Most of them started in that movie. And so when I come back after the break, we will look into the old movie and the new movie, Living in Bondage. See you after the break. And welcome back. Before the break, we were actually talking about the movie Living in Bondage, and I had said that we will be discussing both the old Living in Bondage and the new Living in Bondage, with more emphasis on the new Living in Bondage. But then I will give an overview about the movie. So Living in Bondage shows us began with the likes of a young guy who's trying to get a job, which is kind of different from the first one of a young man who was married, but he was poor and he had a wife. And I think they were expecting a child, but a couple of things were not just happening for them. And then he met his friend called Polo, who was who was who whose character was acted by Oke Ogwejofor, one of the producers of that movie back then in 1991. And Kenneth Okonkwo was Andy Okeke, the young man who needed a job. I'm still trying to remember this movie. I watched it. I watched it when I was young. And his friend told him that he was going to take him to a place, and then he took him to a place to meet another friend, Omego, who is Kanayo. And then Chief Omego introduced them to, oh God, there were wonderful people in that movie. To the cult where you had the likes of Bob Marley Odoku and a couple of other guys who ended up becoming movie veterans. And a lot of things happened. Kenneth sacrificed his wife. He made money. But then his pretty wife, Merit, never gave him peace because all she did for him was give him love and supported him. And honestly, they would have made money if he was just patient with life. But you see, he ended up doing rituals and using her for rituals. And then that rituals became like he must bring one person and bring another person and bring another person. Although he tried his best not to use his wife, he even pretended to get a prostitute as in presence of his wife, but they didn't allow that to happen, and that prostitute ended up giving her life to Christ. I can't remember her name, and then she ended up giving her life to Christ, and then she became the one who made him, at the end of the whole thing, give his life to Christ. Now, years later, almost 20 something years later, Ramsey Noah again, I think he was the one. Yes, Ramsey Noah again decided to direct this movie with the likes of Charles of Play and then um, they came up with the movie, this time with a young boy who apparently is Andy Okeke's son, from his wife who ran away, because Andy ended up marrying kind of three wives in that movie. He married Mary died. Um, he married the second wife, who was being disturbed by Merit, and she packed her things and she left. He was about to marry the third wife, who was Chichi, and then Chichi was killed by her friend, and Chichi's money, all the money, the friend Ngozi wanted to play that role. Ngozi wanted to decide to, poison Chichi and wanted to run with the money to the airport so she could travel out of the country, and then she was knocked down by a car, and then she died on the road. So the second wife in that movie was the one who gave birth to this son in this movie now, this revamped version, and it was played by Jide Kene Achufusi. Jide Kene Achufusi, and he played a very funny role in this movie that I really like, especially when he would speak to his brother Sean Fakwa, who was his lawyer, who was Tobe, and he was a lawyer, and trying to succeed, and when he got the whole job in the marketing firm and all that, or the advertising firm, and his boss was Ramsey Noah, Richard Williams, he kept talking to his brother like, Omo, the money he has gotten, he hasn't seen it before. When he kept getting the alert, and the rest of them. Then he met Munachi, who is Kelly Nwankwo. Yeah, no, Kelly Nwankwo, that was her name. And then we also saw the likes of Eyina Nwigwe. Eyina Nwigwe in the movie. Eyina Nwigwe was Chief Omego's son, who started the movie, this part 2, the Breaking Free. He started the movie when he was going to sacrifice his child. And there was this little song from old that was being sung there. So that movie, the Living in Bondage, just like Rattlesnake, it had so much flamboyant fashion, wealth, flashiness, lavishness of lifestyle. I think the only part that there was no serious were the part where they had to show Enugu, and that Enugu was Chief Pascal's house. Sorry, Pascal's house, Mr. Pascal's house. Mr. Pascal was played by Zulu Adigwe, and his wife was Ebele Okaro. They were like in-laws to Andy Okeke, and they were the ones who helped him to raise his son. I don't know why I can't remember his name in the movie. But at the end of the day, you could see that this movie had so much lessons to tell. And the characters that were used, most of them, maybe a little bit of them were from the real original movie, like I shouldn't use the word real or original, but from the first installment of the movie, which was the 1991 movie. And it was good that the likes of Bob Manuel, Doku, Kenneth Okonkwo, Kanayo were in that movie. And yeah, the beautiful dancer is Sime. She was also in that movie. I mentioned Munachi Abe. She was also in the movie. And when we come back, we would rate this movie because it's a Netflix movie also. And so we have international breakdown for it. So we'll do that. And then we'll check the money it made on box office. I hope we can get all that. See you after the break. Yes, we're back. And we've been talking about living in bondage if you're just joining us. We're looking at the 1991 movie and the 2019 movie. But one of the things that I really like about the revamped version was how they kept the story wrapped up with the old story. And what I mean by that is making it like a continuation, showing us that even Andy Okeke still was born again, and this time his own son that he didn't even know he had. And that was the amazing thing, because most of us who watched this movie back then in the days, we weren't really sure what happened when the wife ran away. Remember, this was an Igbo movie. Like, they were speaking Igbo all through in the movie. So most of us who really didn't understand Igbo in depth really didn't get the idea that maybe his second wife that ran away was actually pregnant, because she just woke up one morning and ran away from the house after Merritt had, the spirit of Merritt kept disturbing the house and disturbing Andy. So we didn't even know she was pregnant. But they're bringing out that part of the story to say, oh, he had a son that he didn't even know. It was an awesome way of keeping us in suspense. I like how they were able to put the stories together. And like I said, also the producers of this movie are also the producers of Rattlesnake, and they're also the producers of the next movie I'm going to be talking about next episode, so you don't want to miss it. Also, the story was by the same person who did the story Rattlesnake, and it was a Netflix movie, like we all know. It was released on the 8th of November 2019 in Nigeria. So it's like a year after Rattlesnake, a year before Rattlesnake came out, yes. So one of the things that thrilled me about this movie is its box office achievement. It actually made 168.7 million naira on box office. I think it deserves a round of applause, because honestly, that's good sales. And just like the first Living in Bondage, there were so many, and I believe there were so many cultural impacts that you need to learn. In fact, Living in Bondage was one of those movies that kept us grounded back then when we were growing, because we knew that there were repercussions for these things. So one of the funny parts, or a funny story I would like to just give, is a real life story. Back then we didn't know what film tricks were. And after the movie Living in Bondage, one of the rich men in my community back then ended up marrying Merritt. And so Merritt came to live in my community. And for the first time, Merritt decided to visit, I don't know why I can't remember her name. She decided to visit the market, and all the market women ran away, because in the movie that everybody had watched, they thought she died and she was a ghost. Now she was here visiting in real life. This was in the 90s, so don't laugh too much. But this was in the 90s, and a lot of people didn't know what film trick was. So when you die in a movie, you're supposed to be dead. And they saw her in real life, and people ran away from the market, and that kind of a thing. That was just by the wayside, but it actually really happened. Yes, it really happened. Anyway, so my rating for this movie would be, okay, first of all, the international rating for this movie is 5.1/10. I'm talking about the revamped version of it. Remember, the old one didn't have all these balls. No, it had all these balls, but didn't have these technological balls that we have now. But it had these balls, like, to the rural area, people knew living in bondage. So it's liked by 86% of people who had seen it, and that's a good rating. So I wouldn't come here to just, cut it off or cut some things. No, I would say it's a good movie. The editing, the production generally, it's still play production, and you know how they like to live large, from the private jet to the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris that they used in the movie, the range. For me, there were funny dialogues that made sense out of the movie. So for that, I would really rate this movie. Wait for it. It's 70. I'll give it a 70 because I think it really did well. Or should I say 80? I think I'll give it an 80. But if you whatever you feel this movie, I'm talking about the 2019 Living in Bondage, Breaking Free, please leave it as a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow this platform so that you can always get a pop-up, an update every time we make a new video. And thank you all that have always viewed our content and have found it very, very helpful. Please don't forget to always leave your comments, leave your ratings too. And if you have a movie you really want us to rate or criticize, or you want us to talk about, leave it in the comment. I love you, and I am your favorite host. Yeah, I know I'm your favorite host because you're here watching us again. Your favorite host, Big Harry Hikodi Godwin. See you in our next episode.